What's up, gamers? There's been a lot of talk the last couple of years about AI. It keeps getting better and better. It seems like on a weekly basis in some cases. And people have just been wondering, should this be something that's used in creative fields, like in the movie industry, in music, and in the gaming industry? And a lot of that talk has centered around, one, we don't want to take jobs away from people, but also around how it seems like it goes out a lot of times and finds things that already exist and comes back with a conglomeration of those things. And a lot of people have argued that this is more like stealing than creating. And I think that argument has some merit. Well, last night something really interesting happened. I finished up with the podcast, which you should go watch, by the way. It's a really fun episode. And I finished talking to the guys afterwards and hung up and went over to X, where I saw Elon was having a live stream with XAI. They were doing a live stream announcing Grok 3. And even though it had this, they were sitting at this round table, a little bit awkwardly placed, had the screen behind them, it looks so unprofessional to me. The way that it was shot, the lighting is kind of weird. The audio wasn't great. They're clearly in a big open room. I think there's other people watching. You can hear the reverb in the room and stuff. So that was really funny to me. But despite the production quality of this live stream, I could not stop listening to these guys. I mean, they were just a bunch of nerds talking about AI, but they were introducing this new version of Grok and launching it last night. And this was late. This was in the 11 p.m. hour here for me. And for about an hour, they just talked about all of the things that they are doing, that they have been doing, and that they're hoping to do with Grok 3. They started showing off some graphs about how much faster it is over Grok 2 and how much better it is than their competitors. And it really does seem like from the various benchmarks they've been performing that it is better than any other AI model out there publicly available today. Now, I will admit that I'm no expert when it comes to all of this AI stuff, but some of the things that they were showing and explaining did sound really intriguing. And they did some live tests. They showed off different features and they asked different questions, and some of these were really complex questions. In fact, they asked it to create a 3D model of a shuttle leaving Earth and landing on Mars and returning to Mars, and all of the math involved in that and the trajectories and stuff like that. And it came back with that model and with dates and times of when to launch and stuff. That's pretty crazy. And it did that in a matter of, I want to say, a couple of minutes, where it might take a person, many hours to come up with all those calculations. So that's pretty crazy stuff. But then they started talking about gaming, and they announced that they are opening a gaming studio where developers will work with Grok 3 to develop games. And I have such mixed feelings about this. I'm not sure. I'm kind of excited because it seems like to me that this will be something that almost anybody could use to build games. I'll be honest, I have ideas for games that I think would be fun, and I'm wondering with Grok 3, could I build those games? And so the way that I think that this would work is that you would type in a prompt and you would say, hey, I want to make a game that does this or has this theme, and give it some direction, right? And then it would come out with a game. It would spit out the coding for a game, and you can even tell it what coding language you want it to be in, and it will output that for you. But then you can begin to refine it by following up with other prompts. So say you want your main character's clothes to be green instead of red, or you want to change the art style. Maybe you want it to be in a Japanese watercolor art style, or let's say you've finished the traversal mechanics for your protagonist, but you decide, hey, I want to add a jetpack. I think that you've finished the walking, the running, the jumping, you've got it all kind of ironed out the way you want it, but now you say, hey, I would like to add a jetpack. Can you design a jetpack and figure out the coding for jetpack flight mechanics and gameplay and add that into the traversal? I think that that's kind of where this is going and how this is going to work. Then here's that model of the shuttle leaving Earth and landing on Mars. The green dot leaves Earth, lands on Mars, and then comes back to Earth at the right time where it doesn't have to travel any extra distance. But then they also asked it to build a game, and the prompt that they put in for building the game was, I can't remember how they worded it, but they wanted to take Tetris and Bejeweled and make a game combining those two gameplay types. And so within a couple of minutes, it coded this right here. It coded a game that looks a lot like Tetris, but the pieces are not in solid colors, they're in multiple colors. And you have to match 3 colors to make those colors disappear. And then they played it right there, live on this live stream. And I know that this is a really, really simple introduction to what they're trying to do here. But again, they were just launching this last night. It's still very new. It's still more or less kind of in beta, and they talked about how it's still learning, it's still growing. But long story short, they talked about how this is learning to be creative. And I think that that is the big difference here between what we have seen with AI and what AI could be. Now, where all this goes in the future is really hard to say. Do we eventually come to a day where the AI no longer needs us to prompt it and it's just creating things on its own? I guess that's one possible outcome of all of this, but it's also possible that this could speed up the process of making AAA games. And that's my hope for it, that it doesn't necessarily take away jobs, but that it actually allows companies to output games at a faster pace while still retaining their development teams. Imagine what once took hours to calculate or to code, only taking a couple of minutes, or let's say it used to take 2 days, now it takes 10 minutes. As companies' budgets for gaming have ballooned into these multi-million-dollar projects that are taking 4 or 5, 6, even 7 or 8 years to develop one game. Imagine if they could do all of that work with the same team, but in a year. They could put out so many more games that then help fund the company. And so what I'm hoping is that this kind of technology moving forward would not necessarily replace people, but allow more companies to keep their doors open. We've seen too many layoffs over the last couple of years. I woke up this morning and saw that another VR developer, Toast, has decided to close their offices. They made one of my favorite games of the year last year, Max Mustard, in VR, and it was like such a great game. And I know those people worked so hard to make it such a beautiful and fun game, and it makes me sad to see that they've had to close their doors. And some of what we've seen in the industry as a whole is it comes down to maybe some mismanagement on the management side of things. But I think a lot of it too is from the fact that they can't make enough money for how much they're spending, obviously, because their output of games is too slow. And if major studios can output like one game a year versus one game every 5 years, that could potentially, if they're fun games, lead to a huge boost in sales, which should help keep people at their desks working and providing for their families. But I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic about all of this. I see why people are hesitant. I understand those reasons, but I also see how this could be a good thing. And what do you think about this idea of Elon Musk and his teams getting into the gaming industry? This could shake up things in a good way, or maybe it'll ruin us all. I don't know. But let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for liking, watching, subscribing, all that jazz. I really appreciate it. Stay kind and encouraging out there, and I'll catch you on the flippity flip.